Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Job, the 30th chapter. Now, as we go into this chapter, right, it says Job's present state is humiliating. Here, this is like the opposite, right? In the 29th chapter, he reminisced about how glorious of a state he was in. And in the 30th chapter, he now goes into, but now this is the state he's in. This is how people treat him. Now, for the first couple of verses, right, maybe up to verse 8 or so, he describes those that were considered base, right? Like sons of Belial, the lowest class, the lowest of the earth. And he describes them and says how these people, how low they were, are now at a point where they mock him. They make fun of him, right? They disrespect him. Now, as he describes these low and vile people, these verses can also be attributed to Esau, Edom, okay? Because, on the other layer of it, this also describes Esau, okay, and his nature from his low state, okay, that he was in before the Lord raised him up, right? I.e. that cave dweller state / mentality before the Lord raised him up and brought him up out of there and put him in these positions in which he's going about now thinking he runs shit. Anyway, so there's a parallel in these verses here, but just wanted to point that out as we go through it. So this is Job 30:1. But now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers, and when you go into that word younger, it's what is it? Insignificant. So it says here, out of not more than, let's see, I don't know if they changed this if they changed this definition here, but let's see here. From on account of, okay, did I click the right word here? Yeah, okay, let's take a look at this one. Nope. Yep, it should be this one. But the younger, goes into not just by age, but also like significance, right? And I'm not sure if the Blue Letter updated this, or maybe it's just me. But I'm pretty sure I saw one of that in these definitions over here. In any case, let's see what we have here. It says from, out of, on account of. Yeah, I'm not even sure if this is the right word. Let's take a look here. Maybe there you go. That's what it is. So it looks like the actual word for younger. This is not. It's not this. It's not 4480, but more the 6810. Okay, as it says here, Taza Ayar, little, insignificant, right? So you have younger, but you also have insignificant here. And so he's describing those that were insignificant, compared to him, have him now in derision, right? As a mockery, as a laughing stock, as a reproach. Those whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flock. I wouldn't even put them, as part of, or even near my dogs, right? It says NIV, but now they mock me, men younger than I, whose fathers I would have disdained to put with my sheepdogs. Here, whereto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. NIV, it says, of what use was the strength of their hands to me, since their vigor had gone from them? So they were basically useless to him. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste. See that? And that's why I mentioned like there are parallels in here, right? And applying to Esau, because that actually they did that, right? They ended up eventually moving out, you know, into that low, desolate state as they were in those caves, which they dwelt in caves as well in Petra, but they were more civilized then. Talking about when they went up into the Caucasus Mountains and they became savages, right? And then eventually came back down, and then started to wise up, if you would call it. But really, it was the Lord raising them up to fulfill prophecy, right? But on the other hand, Job is describing here those in his area that he considered to be base men, and now they've risen up against him, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. And these are basically herbs, okay? But as it says here, NLT, they pluck wild greens from among the bushes and eat from the roots of broom trees. They were driven from among men. See, that's how they were so bad that people didn't want them around. They cried after them as after a thief, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks. All right, so when applying to Esau, that's where you have the whole term, the Caucasians, which goes back to cave dwellers, okay? But as it says here, they drove them, that's why it says they were driven from among men, to basically be forced to dwell in these valleys and caves and rocks. Among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. Now, when you actually go into that word, braid, it says to bray, to cry out. Now, let me see here. Bray sound. Yeah, it says here, a bray is a distinctive sound, a harsh cry of a donkey, even described as hee-haw, hee-haw, used for long-distance communication, expressing excitement, loneliness, or alerting others, and is unique to each animal. Okay, so as it says, which is also kind of like saying they cried out, right? But NLT says they sound like animals howling among the bushes, huddled together beneath the nettles. And that's where you have the whole, like, I guess it's the whole stereotypical sounds of like cavemen, like making non-human sounds, not speaking proper English, and just basically communicating with sounds like animals. I think a good movie. I remember the Apostles mentioned it to me. I did watch it. What was it? Something of the planet Earth, but basically in the movie you had it was basically depicting Esau, but you had these I'm trying to remember the concept of it. It was a pretty long movie, but you had Esau that was basically living like cave animals, and then they would get captured by this more advanced civilization of people who had like spaceships. They could shoot lasers and stuff. They had like laser guns, but they made them look kind of like aliens. And then yeah, I can't remember the details of it, but if you've ever seen that movie, it's an old movie, but you'll know what I'm talking about. But how they were acting in that movie fits this characteristic is these verses here, right, as to how they're described. So as it says here, verse 8, they were children of fools, yea, children of base men. Base men are like vile, lowest of the lowest. They were viler than the earth. Sheesh. Meaning they were pretty much good for nothing. It says the NIV, a base and nameless brood. They were driven out of the land. NLT, they are nameless fools, outcasts from society. And now I am their song. She's saying, so these people, the lowest of the lowest, I have now become their reproach. Yea, I am their byword. They abhor me, they flee far from me, and spare not to spit in my face. So they don't even want to be close to me, But as it says, and spare not to spit in my face. Now, as Job is saying all these things, it's not all literal, right? Like people just running up to him and spitting in his face, but he's describing what it feels. If somebody spits in your face, that's disrespect. Okay, so he's describing also his experience, right, after having suffered all these calamities upon him, and how people began to treat him and see him now. So he pretty much lost everything. Okay, it says they despise me and won't come near me except to spit in my face. And this is verse 10. So what I'll do is I'll pull up here, the parallel, and then we can go through it, so I have to keep on popping over the tools section. So it says, because he hath loosed my cord and afflicted me, they have also let loose the bridle before me. Now, when you go into that word cord, it actually goes into his glory, his excellency, as you see, his excellence. Okay, the superiority that Job had, because the Lord loosed that or took that from him and afflicted him. They also have loosed the bridle before them. That is, like, to, as it says in the NLT, to throw off all restraint. So they just straight disrespect him. Upon my right hand rise the youth. They push away my feet, and they raise up against me the ways of their destruction. It says here, these outcasts oppose me to my face. They send me away sprawling and lay traps in my path. They mar my path. They set forward my calamity. They have no helper. They block my road and do everything they can to destroy me. They know I have no one to help me. So they're basically taking advantage of him in this state that he is in. They came upon me as a wide breaking in of waters. In the desolation, they rolled themselves upon me. It says here, they came at me from all directions. They jump on me while I am down. Terrors are turned upon me. They pursue my soul as the wind, and my welfare passeth away as a cloud. So he's like it's just everything, right? Everything is bad. He's constantly living in this shame, this embarrassment, this pain, this terror, this anguish. And as he says here in the NLT, right, my honor has blown away in the wind, and my prosperity has vanished like a cloud. And now my soul is poured out upon me, and the days of affliction have taken hold on me. See, and that it's like basically his the depression, right? When his soul is poured out, that means he's just, he's losing it, right? For lack of a better word, is no. It says here, and now my life seeps away. Depression haunts my days. My bones are pierced in me in the night season, and my sinews take no rest. So once again, not only is this, emotionally distressing, it's also physically taxing, right? As he says, his bones are pierced in him, right? They're filled with pain in the night, and my sinews take no rest. So he's constantly hurt. He's constantly in pain. He's having bad dreams. He can't sleep. He got dark circles. He's not really eating right. By the great force of my disease is my garment changed. It bindeth me about as the collar of my coat. It says here, with a strong hand, God grabs my shirt. He grips me by the collar of my coat. He hath cast me into the mire, and I am become like dust and ashes. I cry unto thee. That's to like cast him down, right? Make him real low. I cry unto thee, and thou dost not hear me. I stand up, and thou regardest me not. Thou art become cruel to me. With thy strong hand thou opposest thyself against me. Thou liftest me up to the wind. Thou causest me to ride upon it, and dissolvest my substance. It says here in the NLT, you throw me into the whirlwind and destroy me in the storm. And so we know that's not literal, right? But that's Job describing how he feels the Lord is treating him. For I know that thou wilt bring me to death. and to the house appointed for all living. And I know you are sending me to my death, the destination of all who live. Howbeit, he will not stretch out his hand to the grave, though they cry in his destruction. So here, surely no one would turn against the needy when they cry for help in their trouble. Do not I weep for him that was in trouble? Or did not I weep for him that was in trouble? And was not my soul grieved for the poor? Right, going back to the good things that he did in his life. When I looked for good, then evil came. So how come when I did those things, I did the right thing, but when I looked for good, I got evil in return, right? Then evil came onto me. And when I waited for light, there came darkness. My bowels boiled and rested not. The days of affliction prevented me. My heart is troubled and restless, NLT. Days of suffering torment me. I went mourning without the sun. I stood up and cried in the congregation. I went in gloom without sunlight. I stand in the public square and cry for help. I am I am a brother to dragons and a companion to owls. Basically, like symbolizing having been abandoned, right? To now where, as it says, it's like his relatives are now just the animals because nobody is willing to help him. Nobody is willing to support him in this case or in this cause. My skin is black upon me and my bones are burned with heat. And he's once again, poetically describing his condition, both physical, right, emotional, spiritual, all of it. And he's saying, with having lack of proper nutrition, eating and all of those, as he says, his skin, in the NLT, Job 30:30, my skin has turned dark and my bones burn with fever. My harp also is turned into mourning, and my organ into the voice of them that weep. My harp plays sad music, and my flute accompanies those that weep. So, as Job continues to lament, and that brings us to the end of Job 30, right? As Job continues to lament this hardship that the Lord has put him through, and I think it's as as we've been going through, it's harder for him because he's trying to understand why it is when we go into the 29th chapter that he did all those good things, and then he's getting this like far worse outcome, right? He thought he would get a good blessing, but he's getting destruction, right? He's getting pain, he's getting suffering. People are turning on him. He's going through probably some of the worst things that he thinks anybody has ever gone through. Even the wicked, that they don't go through these things, and that's why he's so bitter, right? In his soul, wanting to get answers from the Lord to say like, I don't understand what, like, explain to me what's happening here. Right? Should not those that do the things that I did be rewarded rightly? Why am I being punished like this? And that's pretty much Job's whole cause, right? That's his as we've been going through the past 30 chapters, that back and forth that he's been having with his friends and so on and so forth. So, Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.